Make that 2 wins in a row, ladies and gentlemen. I know, just a 2-game winning streak, but if there ever was a time to go on a win streak, it is now, with only 24 games left in the season. Well, I guess I should say 23 games now, and it being against a division foe, someone they are in direct competition with for playoff seeding. And it was also a must-win game for the Bulls tonight because the Pacers were short-handed without, in my opinion, their 2 best players in Brogdon and Sabonis. The Bulls were a little shaky there in the first quarter, a little sloppy taking care of the ball, which actually was the case the whole game, which had me a little worried because we all know the Bulls tend to play down to their competition, but they came out strong in the second quarter and really never looked back after that. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Guys, I mentioned this in my weekly preview video, but every game from here on out is so critical, but the games for this week especially, because the Bulls are playing against teams that they're in direct competition with for playoff seeding. And winning these games against the Pacers, and then later this week, the Raptors and the Hawks, enables them to take a full game in the standings against said teams. So my hope is they'll continue to make this momentum and bring it into these back-to-back games against the Raptors and Hawks that are happening on Thursday and Friday. A lot of positive things to say about this game, although I wasn't too pleased to see the Pacers. They went on a little run there in the third quarter after the Bulls went up 20. This was actually after Miles Turner got hurt after that pretty incredible block on Patrick Williams. Patrick got a little taste of his medicine there after that epic block that he had against DeAndre Ayton. But in those instances, if you're the Bulls and you see Turner go down, who is probably their best player when Brogdon and Sabonis are out, and obviously I don't wish for any player to get injured, and I hope that Turner is okay, but you have to take advantage of that and go at them strong. And the Bulls were a little lackadaisical on defense after that happened, but it was okay at the end of the day because the Bulls finally started hustling again, especially towards the end of the third quarter and obviously leading into the fourth to close it out and win the game handily. I was a little surprised to see the Bulls struggle again in terms of turning the ball over. I believe they had 5 turnovers in the first quarter alone, whereas they had 6 turnovers in the entire game against the Nets alone. The Bulls did have 20 turnovers in total, which, by the way, the Bulls are no longer dead last in the league in turnovers committed after the last 2 games. That title now sits with the LA Lakers, which is a little surprising, but with 20 turnovers tonight, who knows, that average might span out to where the Bulls are now going to be last yet again. But in any event, as of right now, the Bulls are no longer last in the league. And let's just hope that tonight was a minor relapse. But the turnovers aside, this was an all-around a great game for the Bulls. I mean, the Bulls finally started hitting their threes in their first game in a while, where the Bulls shot above 40% from 3. They finished the game shooting 42% from behind the arc and 47% from the field. Bulls rebounded the ball very well, out-rebounding the Pacers 57-33. They were great at grabbing offensive boards. They passed the ball well. I was very impressed with their ball and player movement. Not too many isolation plays in the game, and because the Bulls were able to maintain a big lead in the fourth, we were able to rest some guys, although I wasn't quite sure why Billy Donovan left Lavine in as long as he did, and especially Vucevic, who left the game. He was left in the game until about a minute left to go, when this was clearly out of reach. But in any event, it was good for some of these guys to get some rest, which is greatly needed this late into the season. What I absolutely love seeing tonight was Vucevic finally hitting those outside shots. I mean, he's had the best season of his career shooting from behind the arc. But since he's been with the Bulls, he's been shooting under 30% from 3, and he finally got it going tonight, shooting 4 for 7 from 3, 14 for 29 from the field. He had 32 points, 17 rebounds, and 5 assists. I think a lot of people downplay just how good Vucevic is as a passing big man, and that playmaking in the paint is going to be huge for the Bulls going forward. So no, guys, for all of you hating on this trade that was made by the Bulls, you can't jump to judgment after a few games. This team is already starting to play well together with their new big man. I know these past 2 wins, they've played against shorthanded teams, but the confidence and poise that this team is showing in knowing how to best utilize Vucevic is finally starting to show. And obviously, I can't emphasize enough how critical Vucevic's rebounding is for this team. The Bulls haven't had a single player get 17 rebounds in over 2 seasons. 17 rebounds in a game, which was an area the Bulls struggle with greatly in getting second chance points for themselves, but also giving up second chance opportunities to opposing teams. I mean, Vuce had 6 offensive rebounds alone. You rarely saw that from Wendell or Lauri. Zach LaVine, had a relatively quiet night for the most part, but what I liked about this was the fact that despite Lavine having a little bit of an off night from shooting, the team didn't need to rely on him so heavily as they have had in the past. You had other guys like Vucevic, of course, step up on offense, but also Thaddeus Young and even Markkanen and Coby White, they were decent on offense, and I'll get to them in a little bit. But Lavine, who didn't shoot the ball all that well, he was 6 for 18 from the floor and 4 for 12 from 3, but he was effective at doing other things, on the court and getting his team involved with 6 assists to go along with 8 rebounds and 19 points. Patrick Williams, a strong defensive effort for him tonight. He had 4 steals this game. He continues to show a ton of promise on defense, given he's only 19 years old. I know as Bulls fans, we tend to hype this kid up quite a bit, but you have to be excited if you're the Bulls and what this kid has been able to show and just his limited time in the NBA. I would like to see him improve his turnovers a little bit, but he's only 19. I think that'll kind of come with his overall development and growth as a player. Thaddeus Young, another solid game, 14 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Now, as far as the bench, particularly Markkanen and Coby White, who were starters not that long ago, they finally showed some improvement in their play on the court, especially Markkanen. He had 15 points tonight on very efficient shooting in only 22 minutes of play. He was 5 for 7 and 3 for 4 from 3. Good to see those deep shots going in again for Lauri, and he's even rebounding the ball better, by grabbing 6 boards tonight, which is decent with only 22 minutes that he played. Coby White also had a good game, 13 points and shot 5 for 9, but he also had 6 assists and was looking decent in the playmaking department. He did still take some pretty bad shots, especially on the fast break, stopping and popping and taking a 3, which if you remember, it was plays like that got the Spurs back into the game when the Spurs went on that 17-0 run in the 4th quarter a few weeks back. The Bulls got complacent with a big lead and guys started just making plays for themselves, and that's how the Spurs won that game. So I really would like to see Coby stopping those kind of every man for himself type plays, but rather setting it up and taking a high percentage shot even when you do have a double-digit lead, because in today's NBA, big leads can dwindle in a hurry, which the Bulls are all too familiar with. Again, all of this being said, the Pacers were without their 2 best players, and then Turner was out for part of the game as well, so we can be excited that the Bulls won this game, but it's a game they should have won and with no excuses. Looking ahead, the games against the Raptors and the Hawks will be more challenging as the Raptors have been playing a lot better recently, and of course, the Hawks have been a much better team than the slow start that they had at the beginning of the season, especially ever since they fired their head coach. Those games will be bigger tests for the Bulls, especially on a back-to-back night, but we can be happy the Bulls finished off this game strong and they didn't falter and didn't play down to their competition against a shorthanded team, as we've seen the Bulls do that multiple times this season. The Bulls are now just 3 games behind the Knicks for 8th in the East. We'll take it 1 game at a time, and I'll be happy as long as progress is being made. I'll have my hot takes video out tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. Feel free to leave any hot takes that you have in the comments below, or just your thoughts on the game tonight. As always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.